Tricks are for kids, one of the greatest slogans to any product ever made, and it definitely worked for this product right here, Trix Zero, which started in 1953 and has stayed around now for over 70 years. But looking at it, the product's undergone a lot of changes, and there's just one thing they really screwed up with marketing, and that was getting rid of their shapes. Starting this off, we actually have to go back in time to the 1830s for what got cereal started, and that was actually masturbation, or the fear of masturbation, from this guy right here, Sylvester Graham. And Sylvester Graham was this guy who led the temperance movement. He had all these feelings that food had changed our emotion. Sylvester Graham had a lot of really crazy ideas, like saying spicy food made people angry, and also at the same time he thought people were eating too many foods with flavors, and that was making them want to get out and get jiggy with it too often. So because of that, he created bland foods, saying it would make people act more normal, and he was actually the inventor of the graham cracker for that reason. The temperance movement went all the way into the 1890s, where this guy right here, John Harvey Kellogg, was also one of the believers in it, and he had this feeling that people, when they ate too much meat, it stayed in their stomach too long and made them go crazy. And that was the whole reason John Harvey Kellogg would end up creating the product known as Corn Flakes, where he said too many people are eating meat in the morning and that's making them go crazy and get sick throughout the day, so they need to focus on eating grains in the morning. And all of the claims around cereal are complete and total BS, but because it tastes good, it still gets popular very quickly. So then what happens is in 1937, when cereal is now mainstream, this product's introduced right here, and this is Kix. And what makes this unique is it's the first to ever puff cereal where they'd puff up the corn. People like the puff taste, so Kix gets really popular, but then what happens around that time is also World War II. And in World War II, all the men are shipped off to war, and 19 million women enter the workforce, so kids didn't really have a parent making them breakfast in the morning, so cereal, which was previously a product aimed at adults, is now being aimed more at kids because it's a simple meal. And that's where Trix finally enters the picture, where after World War II, kids are obsessed with cereal, so they want to introduce fruitier flavors, and Trix is actually called that just because it's a spin-off of Kix, where it's meant to be fruitier. Crazy is, even though everybody knows Trix for having the fruit shapes in the cereal, that's not actually how they started in 1953, where they were still using the puff design, and they didn't actually move to the shapes until 1991. The reason why Trix decades later decided to make shaped cereal was because of Lucky Charms, where in the late 80s they began losing market share, even though they're owned by the same company. So they realized, hey, if this product's going to stay around, we can't just have the balls anymore, we need to make them shapes because kids like that. The only problem is making Trix the way they do, where it's different shapes and also different colors within the shapes, is actually a giant pain. And the reason is because they have to align all the different color pieces and then put others on top of it, and they have to cut it, making it a much more expensive and time-consuming process. Trix got really popular when they did that in the 1990s and the 2000s, but then in the late 2000s, General Mills was looking to cut corners, and the whole reason for that was cereal sales were declining, where more and more parents realized this stuff is unhealthy, so because of that, they wanted to save a few bucks and go back to the ball method, which they used for almost 40 years. I got a lot of pushback because even though it was fine when Trix didn't have their shapes for decades, once you introduce them, it's hard to take away. And a lot of memes were created like this that spread like wildfire, where people were actually saying, hey, maybe there is some magic to Trix and they really are for kids. That the sales for Trix plummeted, going down a third, and they kept it like that for a year until bringing them back in 2018. And with that, I'm Charles Prowl. Please subscribe to learn something.